What would you say if I told you that what the world needs most right now is sitting in your chair? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me today. It is a pleasure to be with you. And if I were to say that, how would you feel? Would that feel trite, cliche, maybe even a bit patronizing? I would like to take the next 45 minutes or so to tell you why I believe that that is absolutely the case. In fact, I believe it so much that I have titled this time together with you, You Can Change the World. Desmond Tutu said it very well when he said, "Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good that overwhelm the world." I have come to believe in my life that, quite frankly, most often, the world is not changed by some giant, monumental act, but rather by seemingly ordinary people doing deeds that positively impact the lives of those around them. This is something that I believe very deeply within my heart, and that it doesn't take some big name or big event or big opportunity to change the world, but rather just us being faithful in the everyday moments of life to make an impact. An impact that often impacts just one person at a time, but that impact has a ripple effect. When I think about this idea, I think of a story that maybe some of you have heard before, or maybe you haven't. If you have not, it's my pleasure to be able to share it with you today. It's a little boy. He comes out and sees a beach. And this beach was full of starfish. You see, that evening, a giant wave had pushed all these starfish up onto the beach, and as the waters receded, the starfish were stuck. And being without legs or arms or any other capacity to move, they were slowly drying out and dying on the sand. This little boy saw the plight of these starfish, and he ran over and he picked one up, and he ran over and put it in the ocean. And then he went back and he picked one up and he put it in the ocean. And he ran up and picked two up more and threw them in the ocean. And as he scurried back and forth, taking as many of these starfish as he possibly could and putting them in the ocean, and an older man came out and saw the young lad and said, "Boy, what are you doing?" The little boy looked and said, "Sir, the starfish, they're going to die." The man looked, and all the way up the beach, all the way down the beach was full of starfish. He said to the young boy, "There's so many. You can't possibly expect to make a difference." The little boy walked over, picked up one more starfish, took it to the edge of the ocean, dropped it in, and said, "It made a difference for that one." So often, we believe that in order to change the world, we have to have some position. We have to have a title. We have to have this amazing opportunity before us, maybe even a stage. And we miss out on everyday moments in life where we can make a difference for that one. One starfish at a time, one purpose at a time, one person at a time. As I evaluate the opportunities that we have to make a difference, I want to invite us to participate in something that's a little bit weird, a little strange. You wouldn't expect this in a keynote. And I am going to need a volunteer in order to make this happen. And let's see here. Yeah, we'll go ahead and pick you. You can come on up here on the stage with me. And for anybody else that would like to participate, I would invite you to find a partner. Find a partner here in the crowd, and preferably someone you don't know, but if you know them already, that's okay. And here's what you're going to do, all right? And don't do this until I say go. Oh, you're pretty. Don't tell my wife I called you up here, okay? She might get really jealous. I'm just joking. That's my wife. So here's what we're going to do. It's very weird. I get it. But I want you to take the person that's standing in front of you, and I want you to give them a big hug. And here's the deal. Don't start till I say start. When you do this, you're going to hold the hug. It's going to look like this. For a full 30 seconds. And you're just going to stand in this embrace. Holding on. It's going to seem like forever. Especially because you don't know the person. They might smell a little bit. I know. It's okay. Just hang on. Don't let go. Don't let go. All right, thank you. And enjoy a moment of embrace. And release. Thank you. Can we give her a hand? Now hang on for just a second. Here's what science would tell you has just happened. When you just gave that hug, that just boosted oxytocin in your brain. In fact, it activated the internal opioid center of your brain, and additionally, your parasympathetic system was called into the effect. And in so doing, what happened is you actually had a reworking of the psychological aspects of, or the physiological aspects of your brain, resulting in a psychologically transformational experience. And while you don't know any of that, what you do know is that experience just made you feel a little bit happier and a little bit lighter. And all it took was a hug. And here's what's interesting. The studies would suggest that it can be an absolute, complete stranger, but that the act of embrace for a minimum of 20 seconds can actually rewire the brain into experiencing a sense of peace and hopefulness. Thank you so much for being my partner here today. Appreciate you. Now, when I tell you this, I would suggest to you that if a simple hug can make an impact in the life of a complete stranger, imagine what actually caring about people can do. Imagine what a kind word, a kind gesture, something that maybe seems insignificant, but it positively impacts the lives of the people with whom you get to engage. Imagine how impactful that can be. And believe that what you do and say matters. Now, in terms of what you say, half of what you say matters when you say it to yourself. And I think a lot of us get stuck right here. You hear the story about the starfish, and you go, aw, and you see the hug, and you go, that's interesting. But in the deep core of who you are, you still don't actually think you can make a difference. When you walk out of here today, you're going to sit there and you go, that's my life. You know what? I don't have time for this. And so I want to ask you right now, there where you are, to simply say to yourself, I can change the world. All right, I don't believe any one of you yet, because you don't believe you yet. So I need you to say it a little bit louder. Say it like you mean it. I can change the world. I can change the world. Very good. One more time, a little bit louder, a little bit more gusto. I can change the world. I can change the world. Excellent. And now, because we want to see encouragement from others, do me a favor and also look at the people next to you and around you and say, you can change the world. You can change the world. Together, we can change the world. And one more time for good measure. We can change the world. We can change the world. Excellent. Thank you so much for participating with me in that, especially you introverts, which I know are dying right now. But you really can. You really can change the world. Now, here is where a lot of speakers, in my opinion, stop. They leave you with a warm, fuzzy, feel-good message, and they say, you can do it, rah, rah, yeah. And then you leave and you're like, but can I? And so here's what I want to do a little bit differently than what many other people might do. I want to acknowledge something that's kind of tough. And I want to acknowledge that while you can do it, changing the world is hard. Now, I've been saying, well, it's easy, just one person at a time. it's still tough because there are obstacles and barriers. And when you walk out of the room, you can have the best of intentions, but things will still happen that get in the way of your best ambitions. It's not intentional. No one goes out every morning and says, I want to make my life meaningless today. We don't do that. We want to make an impact. We want to do good things. And then we get to the end of the day and we go, what did I really do with my life today? Was there an impact? Did I make a difference? And it's not because we didn't want to, and it is certainly not because we are not capable of doing so. It's because of these obstacles. For example, sometimes people will distract us from our mission. How many times, and maybe I'm the only one, I'm probably the only one, but how many times are you in a conversation with someone you care about deeply and your phone rings and all of a sudden you're distracted? Text message, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, your opportunity to do your little bit of good in that conversation evaporates because of distraction. Or how often you are, maybe it's not even a person, maybe you're trying to study, you're trying to grow, you're trying to become the best version of yourself, and a friend comes along and wants to play video games or wants to go do something, and there's a distraction that's pulling you away from the thing that you feel like you were called to do in that moment. And it requires discipline to avoid these distractions. Not only do we face distractions as we try to do our little bit of good, but sometimes our efforts are completely unwanted. I wouldn't recommend just walking up to a stranger on the street and trying to give them a 20-second hug. Maybe it works for you. For me, I'm pretty sure I would end up in handcuffs. But that's not the only time. How many times have you been genuinely trying to help somebody? Like authentically, no ego, no self-righteousness, no nothing. You just wanted to help, and they acted like you were the bad person for doing so. It reminds me of a child. They're trying to tie their shoes. Up and over and under and bunny ears. And the parent says, come here, Billy, let me just do it. No, I could do it by myself. Up and over and under. Come on, Susie, we got to go. No, I could do it by myself. We adults are no different. We might have different terminology, but we do the same thing. Except for us, it sounds like, who do you think you are? And so sometimes when we're genuinely just trying to reach out and trying to serve, people don't want it. I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a situation, and one comes to mind immediately. I was given the role of director in an organization, and one of the first things someone didn't say to me directly, because people don't say it to you directly, it comes back around through the other way, but one of the first comments that was made is, what does he know about what we do? They didn't want my help. Now, I will tell you something. I'll give you a little secret that's not even in the speech officially. If you just care about people, oftentimes that will overcome all those obstacles. But often, it's not wanted. In addition to being unwanted, sometimes there's sabotage. Sometimes people will actively go out of their way to prevent you from doing your little bit of good in the world. These are some of the most frustrating scenarios because you're just trying to do the right thing, and it's like no good deed goes unpunished. Anyone ever heard of that before? No good deed goes unpunished? And it really feels like that. And I think of in my own life a scenario where we were doing some really, really cool things. We had some programs that were being built. They were impacting a lot of lives. It was a tremendous success. And we're not talking like, a couple of people. We're talking hundreds, maybe even thousands of people being positively impacted. And for whatever reason, one person just felt that we were up to no good in the organization. They literally said, I don't trust you. Something's not right. And they kept actively trying to sabotage the program that we had built. And eventually they decided that since their senior boss wasn't doing enough, they decided they needed to take matters into their own hands. And so they went all the way up to the top level of corporate and filed this huge report alleging all sorts of crazy stuff against the team that I was in charge of. They sent down investigators. I mean, it was craziness. The whole life, like, turned upside down. We weren't doing anything wrong. Everything came back clean. But sometimes people are just not okay with it. And I remember talking to my, kind of my protege, assistant, I don't know what the title specifically was, but my right-hand guy, and he came to me and he goes, John, I don't know if I can do this. So what do you mean? He said, all you do is help. If they're going to do this to you, like, the rest of us don't stand a chance. And I said, all right, sit down for a second, come here. And I said to him, I said, listen, I can't tell you that you're wrong in the sense that this is not great. But what I can tell you is that you have to check your motives. It's going to be hard. The only thing that's going to get you through is if you are genuinely okay with putting your head on the pillow at night, knowing you did the best you could. Because you can't control what anybody else thinks. You can't make them agree with you. You can't make them get on board. All you can do is say, I gave it my best. I was faithful. Whatever else happens, happens. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, there's no shortcuts. In our modern culture, everybody wants a shortcut. Look at the self-help section in any bookstore, and it's 5 shortcuts to this, 7 steps to that, 12 things that you have to do to get to the next goal. And everybody wants the shortcut. Everybody wants the discounted rate on life. Unfortunately, when it comes to changing the world, there are no shortcuts. We have to do the work. The little boy couldn't go, let me think. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll go get one of those beach sweepers and we'll just push all of the starfish back into the ocean. Now, if you've ever seen a beach sweeper, you know that would have ground the starfish up and killed them all. It wouldn't work. You have to do the work. And I think when I think of no shortcuts, I think of a silly example in my own life. This example in my life was, it's a little bit embarrassing. So here's what happened. We were in Kauai, Hawaii. And I am one that, I don't know, I like a deal, I guess. And so I had decided to rent my car off-site from the airport. Now, that was not a problem. Got to the airport, they had a shuttle there, they picked us up, they brought us to the car, I got the car, we drove it around for 7 days or however long we were there, and then when we were leaving, what I already knew, I knew this in advance, it was planned in my head, when we were leaving, I was going to need to drop the car off before the car rental place opened, and then I was going to need to walk to the airport. I knew this in advance, had plenty of time mapped out, and walking to the airport was not a big deal. In fact, this is a map of how far it would have taken to walk to the airport. You can see there, it's a pretty straight shot, it's not that far, and it looks like 1.4 miles, all right? Now, I'm not exactly a runner, but 1.4 miles I think anybody can do if you really want to, all right? So all it should have been, I walk, get to the airport, I had a half hour to walk 1.4 miles. That is plenty. I can run a mile in 6 minutes, okay? I know that's not impressive, but it's a lot less than a half hour. 1.4 miles, 30 minutes. The problem is that at about, I don't know, a third of the way, I got this little notice with this red arrow that said, you can take a shortcut. And so I did. Now, if you look closely at the map in front of you, you will notice that all of a sudden that blue line that used to be on the right or the left side of your screen is now on the right side of the screen. When I had put in the directions, 2 things had happened. Number 1, I failed to specify the terminal I wanted to go to. And number 2, I thought I saw a shortcut. If you can't tell what happened there in that map, what happened was that it took me to the back of the airport. And with very little time left, this was my view. I could see the planes, I could see the terminal, but there was a chain link fence topped with barbed wire and a whole lot of runways between me and where I needed to go. And in the end, I ended up needing to not go 1.4 miles, but as you can see somewhere up there, I believe, yeah, there we go, 4.1 miles, and it calculated that it was going to take an hour and 30 minutes. I think I made it happen in about 45. Exactly 30 seconds after the door to my flight closed. When you want to change the world, and I realize that me buying a car, or not buying, but renting a car from a discount off-site place is not changing the world, but when you want to change the world, shortcuts do not work. It's simply the fact of the matter. Anyone can change the world, but that doesn't mean that it won't be hard. Anyone can do it, but it doesn't mean that it won't be hard. Now, you might say, okay, I get it. You're telling me I can. You're telling me it's hard, and quite frankly, you've talked me out of it now because I really didn't sign up for hard. I was okay if it was easy. If changing the world means I get to go to the back and eat donuts, I'm on board. If it means I got to do something hard, not so much, what could you possibly give me more? And if that's your question, I would say that I think that there's still another challenge that people face, and it's a challenge that is difficult to describe. It's an intrinsic challenge. It's the challenge that says, John, that sounds good. I hear you. You're up on the stage, though. You've got a company. You get to do these things. That sounds great. How about you change the world? Because I got some stuff going on that, frankly, you know nothing about. I've got some baggage that kind of holds me back. I've got some things in my life that I'd love to get rid of them, but quite frankly, they're not going anywhere. And because of that, quite honestly, I don't think changing the world is in my future. I'm not even certain that I'm going to change the bed, let alone change the world. And if that's where you're at, if you're sitting here today and you're thinking to yourself, John, I've got limitations, internal, personal limitations that stand between me and making any sort of a meaningful or positive impact, I'd like to tell you another story. The story starts with a video that should be playing on your screen. It's a grainy video. I apologize for that. But if you can't tell what's going on in this video, I'll explain it just so we can all track together. What you're seeing there is a parking lot. In the distance, you see another chain link fence. This is not at the airport. This is different. And behind the chain link fence, you have some tan buildings, otherwise known as a prison. That is Globe Unit in the Arizona Department of Corrections. And the individual that is walking out, you can see the gate opening. As the individual walks out, the person that you are seeing there is 31 years old, and he has been behind those gates for 12 years. At the age of 19, he and some of his friends made a very foolish decision. And that decision, which was to light a fire, cost his best friend his life, and obviously there were legal ramifications for the young man on that screen. He paid dearly with a 14-year prison sentence, the loss of his best friend, of course, and the label of felon. He couldn't undo what he had done, no matter how much he wanted to. All he could do was do his little bit of good where he was. And where he was now prison. It started with him looking inward and saying, okay, I've got issues. I've just landed myself in prison for over a decade. And so he looked and he thought to himself, and he said, I've got to figure out what's going on. And so he started working on his character, and he realized that he was not a person of integrity, that he had been a liar, that he'd been a manipulator, that he had had many issues. And so those things needed to be addressed first. Then he started working on an education and started growing as an individual. And as he invested in his personal growth, he started to have opportunities to invest in the growth of others. So much so that by the time you see him walking out of this prison here, that young man had developed about 30 self-help rehabilitation programs inside of the Department of Corrections, and over 10,000 inmates had gone through his programs. In fact, today, as I stand here talking to you, the Arizona Department of Corrections is still using some of the materials that that young man built. That young man got out of prison after over a decade. Think about that. Think about what happens in a decade of time. Think about where you were 10 years ago. Imagine how your life was different. Over a decade, 12 years behind bars. He still had 2 more to do under parole or community supervision or whatever they call it in Arizona. But he wasn't going to let that hold him back. He wasn't going to let that hold him down. So he decided to continue to do his little bit of good. And what happened is somebody recommended that since he built all of those programs in the Department of Corrections, maybe he could build some training. And so a company said, okay, we'll give you like a 1099 kind of contractor idea. You know, you're not an employee, but you can come in and maybe try to build some stuff. And so he said, okay, I'll come in. And he worked on a few things and built some stuff for them. And they said, man, this is pretty good. What do we got to do to keep you? And so 2 months into the 3-month contract that he had, they offered to make him their training manager of the entire company. He said, okay. And he built their training department from the ground up. As he did his little bit of good where he was, as he invested into people, one person at a time, one starfish at a time, if you will, he began to get additional opportunities for responsibility. And eventually, after 2 years in the role of training manager, they asked him to step up even higher into the organization and to become the director of revenue. That's not something you hear very often. Director of revenue, felon. He could have let it stop him. He could have said, I'm not qualified. He could have said, I don't know if you want to do that. But he took the challenge and he served at that time, I think he said it was something like 5 teams in 4 countries and 3 continents or something like that. It was a lot of responsibility. And eventually, he decided that he'd been a training manager and he'd been a director of revenue and he had all these classes and all stuff. And he said, you know what? The way that I can really pick up the most starfish is actually by starting my own company. And so if he were here today and he were to be speaking to you, I think he would say to you something like, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what's your story. I don't know what you might feel is holding you back from doing your little bit of good in the world. But if a felony isn't going to stop him, why should whatever it is stop you? In fact, I know that he would say that if he were here today. Because the man in that video is me. Anyone can change the world. And it doesn't matter what your backstory is. It doesn't matter what your limitations are. If you're willing to pick up a starfish, you can change the world. I had a neat opportunity just recently. I'm part of something in the Arizona Small Business Association called the Growing Opportunities Program. And that program brings people out when they come out of prison. It gives them resources so they can start a company. Didn't exist when I got out. None of these programs existed when I got out. Now they all do. But they assign mentors to these people that are getting out of prison so that they can grow and build a business. I am the only individual in the Growing Opportunities Program that I'm aware of who is both a criminal justice impacted individual and a mentor in the program. All the mentees are, but mentors are local business owners. And so I'm talking to my new mentee. This is about 9 months ago now. And I'm talking to my new mentee, and we're getting to know each other a little bit. And he stops me in the middle of the conversation. He goes, wait a minute. You're Jon? I said, yeah. He goes, Jon Antonucci? I told you that last week when we met. Yes. Dude, I've been hearing about you for years. As it turned out, he had been a part of some of the units that I had been on previously, and they were still using the curriculum, and apparently as he had been trying to do his little bit of good, people had compared us every so often. You can do your little bit of good in the world. But there's one other thing that I think that we often forget. We forget the word how. Once again, it's very easy to say you can do it. Don't let anything stop you. If it doesn't stop me, it shouldn't stop you, blah, 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 blah. But how are we going to do it? How are we going to make a difference? And what I'd like to do is I'd like to give you just 4 strategic things that you can do when you walk out of this room today that will help you make a difference in somebody's life, and that ripple effect will change the world. They're not hard, they're not complicated, they might be hard to follow through on, but they're not hard to do. The first one is very, very simple. It's not even going to surprise you. It's love. Care about people. Mother Teresa said, spread love everywhere you go. Let no one ever come to you without leaving happier. What would it take for the next time you talk to somebody, they feel a little bit better after talking to you? It can be simple. How many of you are going to go to the store sometime this weekend? Perfect. What would it take for you to take just the extra half a second to look at the cashier or whoever it is you're talking to's name, because they have the little name tag, right? And say, hey, Sarah, thank you. Appreciate you. I hope you have a really great weekend. And just uplift them. Care about them as a human being. No agenda, nothing you want from them. Just genuinely loving them as a person. It's huge. And it's so often missed. In that place of love, or from that place of love, be available. One of the things that I think stops us from changing the world most often is the fact that we are so busy. We don't have time for anyone or anything that's important. We're so distracted by YouTube shorts and Instagram reels and any other number of things that we completely miss this opportunity to simply be available. I really enjoy this quote by Laura Vanderbloom. She says, instead of saying, I don't have time, try saying it's not a priority and see how that feels. Now think about this, because I want to bring this down to the microscopic personal level. Next time someone says, hey, can I talk to you? Instead of saying, sorry, don't have time, what if you said, sorry, you're not a priority? Is that a dagger to your heart too? See, here's the reality. We have time for what we make time for. If we want to change the world, it's not hard, but it's hard. Be available. Make intentional time for the people and the things that are most important. And if you want to make a difference, often availability is one of the fastest ways to do that. In that place of availability, you can do something else. And we all love to have this happen to us, but we're not always so good at offering this, and that is listening. Listening. Roy T. Bennett said, sometimes all a person wants is an empathetic ear. All he or she needs is to talk it out. Just offer a listening ear and an understanding heart for his or her suffering can be a big comfort. How many of you like it when you feel like you've been listened to? We all do, right? In fact, it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen was watching a scenario where I was at a table, and the table was, I guess there's probably 8 of us. There's usually 8 people around the table. 8 people around the table, and one of the individuals at the table, they just asked questions. They didn't say anything. Like, at the end of the meal, I knew nothing about them. Spent the entire dinner that way, and at the end of the dinner, one of the other people at the table looked square at that person in the eye and said, "You are such a good communicator." It was hilarious because the person hadn't said anything other than just asking questions and letting people talk. But listening is such a powerful thing. Now, we often don't listen because we don't make ourselves available, and I think that the availability side, if I can kind of double back to the availability, it reminds me of a director that I was once able to help, because this director wanted to be available, they wanted to listen, they wanted to be the things that we have talked about here today. They understood intellectually how important these things were. And so she would tell her staff, hey, you can come talk to me anytime, my door is always open, all the stuff. But they never did. For whatever reason, things would become nightmares before anybody would venture into her office and, so could I talk to you? And because of that, she became increasingly frustrated. And one day in particular, she was talking to someone who had chosen to leave the organization, doing an exit interview. And as she did the exit interview, the person was sharing the concerns that they had. And the director was getting a little bit agitated because the things that were being brought up were quite frankly easy to fix. And finally, the director just stopped. Stop. Why? Why didn't you come tell me? Why didn't you just bring this? This is so easy. These are not difficult things to fix. We could have addressed all of this. And the young woman that was in front of her kind of put her head down and sighed and said, well, I tried. I mean, I wanted to. But every time I came over here, your door was closed, or you were kind of behind your computer. It looked like you were working really hard. I didn't want to bother you. After the young woman had left, the director was very confused. Again, she'd spent a lot of time and energy. My door's always open. Come talk to me anytime. All that. But as she began to reflect, she realized some things that were incongruent with her messaging. She recognized that what she had a tendency to do was book all of her meetings in the morning so that she could get them out of the way and have the rest of the day to do what needed to be done. And because she was in meetings, she would have the door closed so that she didn't disrupt the rest of the office, which is a nice thing to do. Unfortunately, throughout the meetings, the little ding thing on the side of the computer would keep coming up, letting her know about emails and other things that were coming in. And so as soon as the meetings were over, she was buried trying to clear out her inbox. Well, she also had an eastern-facing office, and so because the office was eastern-facing, she had all that glorious sunlight that would come in the mornings, and it made the office nice and bright and wonderful. But as she would continue to work, buried by her work, that sun would slowly go higher and higher, which meant the office got darker and darker. By the time it was noon and she finally ventured out for lunch or a bathroom break or something, her door would get cracked, she would leave, she would maybe heat something up in the microwave, she would come back in, and she wouldn't even realize that her office now basically looked like pitch black midnight because she was so busy staring at her screen. Wide eyes, late night, cramming, all that, right? And so, bottom line, her office was not inviting, her door was not open, and her best intentions were thwarted by lack of action that made it an option. So as we're available, we're listening, and here's the deal. If we realize we're not listening, if we haven't heard anything, it's probably because we're not as available as we actually think we are. One more point, find the yes. I won't read the quote, I'll let you read the quote. I'll just simply say that as we're listening, because we love people, we've made ourselves available, find a way to say yes to them. Find a way to encourage them. Find a way to support what they're doing. We are so quickly the type of people, in just general, as human beings, we're contrarian. That's just how we are in natural humanity. And so because of that, we tend to find the no. We tend to find the reason it won't work. And we're very discouraging to our friends and even just strangers. And so I would highly recommend, if you want to make a difference, one of the things that you will hear, anybody that ever gives like a testimonial about a person that really made an impact, listen to that testimony. It'll always start with something like, they believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. They saw something in me that I didn't see. They encouraged me to do the thing that I didn't know if I could do. That's that, find the yes. That's that way to say, yes, go do it. Go make it happen. I hear you. I care about you. I love you. And I want you to succeed. And here's what's cool about these 4 concepts. If you're a CEO, they work. Love your people, be available, listen, and find the yes. If you are a middle manager, love your people, be available, listen, and find the yes. If you're a parent, love your people, be available, listen, find the yes. And if you're a friend, love your people, be available, listen, and find the yes. This is the beauty of these 4 key things. You want to make a difference? You don't have to do some gargantuan thing. You don't have to build a library. You don't have to be nominated for a park. Care about people. Do your little bit of good in the world. Those little bits of good can make a tremendous impact. These are just 4 starting points. There's lots of other things you can do, but they will make a big impact. So what if I told you that what the world needs most right now is sitting in your chair? Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an honor. I thank you so much for this opportunity. And I want to remind us all, let's go change the world. Thank you.